All right, guys, I tried to do a video last night. Was stuck in traffic. Every time I would start recording something would happen, or I'd have to move forward or something. So I thought I'd put a video back together tonight. It's about 10 o'clock at night on Friday. So I kind of wanted to go over my journey for the last, 20 years or so with truck driving. So basically in 2005, I got out of law enforcement. I was in it for almost 20 years and I got out of it. It was time with everything that was going on, and it just needed to be done. And not only that, me and my girlfriend, which is my wife now, we ended up relocating to Tennessee for a few short months. We thought that that's where we were going to end up, but we didn't stay there. So we ended up moving to Tennessee, and at the time I didn't want to go back into law enforcement. The wife did, so she did. She ended up, we'll get into that later, but anyway, I didn't want to go back into law enforcement, and so what I ended up doing is I went and got my CDL, something I've always wanted to do. I wanted to be a truck driver, so I got my CDL license, and my very first truck driving job went to TMC Transportation flatbed. I found out really quickly that, number one, that I'm definitely not a flatbedder. There's a lot of physical work. I give kudos to those guys that do any type of flatbed work. There's a lot of guys out there, but it takes a special person to do that. Just like in law enforcement, SWAT team. Everybody always wanted to be with the SWAT team. That's something I never really had any desire to do, to be on that front line of the SWAT team. But anyway, that's kind of what I compare the flatbed guys compared to, regular drive-in guys. I've been more of a, a passive guy. Didn't really want to do, all the extra physical work. And when you do all the extra physical work like that, not that I'm against it or anything, it's just that there's a chance of you getting hurt. Your whole purpose of your job is to drive. And again, these are just my opinions. I'm not saying that flatbed isn't a great job. It really is. But anyway, I found out really quickly that's what I didn't want to do. I had a trainer that was absolutely horrible. We did not get along, so I ended up just leaving after maybe 2 months, I think, if that. Don't really remember. I think it was about 2 months that I was there. So at that point, I got out of got out of trucking for a little while. Me and the wife ended up not staying in Nashville, and we ended up moving closer to where my mom was. We found out that my mom had got cancer, and we wanted to be closer to her, so we moved to Naples, Florida. Another job that I always wanted to do is I always wanted to sell cars, so I got into the car business. Well, you know what? Let me back up with this, because I should have wrote this stuff down. I actually worked for the beer company. I worked for both. I worked for Anheuser-Busch, and I also worked for Miller Coors for quite some time, from about 2006 all the way up to about 2014, off and on. I had a little bit of break in there. I sold cars for about a year in there. But, I did the beer business and basically sold beer off the truck, and that's kind of how you did it with that. And that kept my CDL license doing that, because I had to deliver the beer. After that, when I was working at Miller Coors, I had the wild idea, hey, I think I want to get into the lease purchase plan and go to a company and buy a truck. Didn't really do a whole lot of research, which I probably should have. Obviously, I should have. Went to a company called TransAm, and if you guys know what TransAm is, it's probably one of the worst companies that's out there, comparable with Western Express. Could not make any money there whatsoever. I was there for a few months, and it just didn't work. Didn't like anything about the company. I also found out a hard lesson there that reefer wasn't for me either. And kudos to those guys that do reefer. We need truck drivers everywhere, but reefer's not for me, because you had some odd schedules. You never knew, you knew what you were doing, but you might have a 4 a.m. delivery one day, and the next day you might have a 2 p.m. delivery, and it's just, you got messed up hours, and lots of times you were delayed for anywhere between 4 and 10, 15 hours, sometimes even days. Depending on, which place you went to. I remember going to a Walmart, back in 2015. I sat there for more than a day and a half just to get unloaded with their product. And then we had to pay a lumper to have them take the product off the truck, which never really understood the lumper process. I think somewhere down the line that needs to be taken care of. I just don't understand why the trucking companies has to pay a lumper fee to get the product loaded off the trailer to the company that's buying the property. Never makes any sense to me. But again, kudos to the drivers that do the reefer. It's just not me. So shortly after that, I went to a company called Eagle Logistics. They were a branch or a company under Celadon, which both companies are no longer in business. Not a lot of people know who Eagle Logistics are. They only had about 1,000 drivers at the time. I followed some guys on YouTube. They were doing really well. The problem was, it's just kind of what's going on now. When I got into it, it was just a little bit too late. The economy kind of, I don't want to say it was bad or anything, but the economy kind of changed, and I got into it a little late, and I didn't make a whole lot of money with them either. But if I would have stuck it out for another month or so, because I got out around November of 06. If I would have stuck it out just a little bit longer, I probably could have made a little bit of money. My buddy, stayed with the company, and quite frankly, he actually stayed with and went on to Celadon and drove with them for several years until they went out of business or shut down or whatever they did. But this was from 2015 all the way up to 2021. He finally paid his truck off after 6 years, and he stuck with them. And then once they went out of business, the leasing company was a side company off of Celadon. They were owned by Celadon, but it wasn't Celadon that he leased it to. But anyway, that's besides the point. But lost my ass on that job too. Got out of it real quick. Went back into car sales. And at this time, this was the time period that my mom eventually, the cancer took her life, and she lived for damn near 9 years with it, and did real, she was a fighter. She stuck with it, and she was a fighter, and there was a lot of times that she didn't want to fight, but she did it, for my son. He was young at the time, and shortly thereafter, me and my wife had our daughter in 2012, and those are the things that she lived for, and it's really weird how things work out. But anyway, I went after my mom was deceased. Me and the wife decided to relocate to the East Coast to be closer to her father, and that's what we did. We relocated to the East Coast, and that's pretty much where we're at now, back with closer to her father. And there were some brief short period times where we relocated quite a few times. We like to move, let's put it that way. But at this point, we're not moving anymore. But we lived in Wichita, Kansas for a couple years. We moved back to Kentucky for about a year in between that. And I drove a truck off and on in between there. So let's catch up to about 2020. This is when I really got back into the trucking. Got tired of car sales. Car sales kind of went down. COVID. Well, this is right before COVID. Well, you know what? 20 was COVID. So COVID kind of took a little bit of a abrupt turn for sales. And I just kind of got out of it and got back into truck driving. Went to a company called First Fleet. I kept my CDL. Didn't do anything with it. But as you know, if you get out of it for a few years, you got to start all over again. So I got lucky. Got to a company that only required, a couple months of experience, and I still had something on paper where I had driven when I was in Kentucky, and they took me aboard. I worked for them for about 7 months, and eventually went on to FedEx, and I worked for a FedEx ground contractor out of Wichita. Absolutely loved the guys there. Good experience. I had great times with FedEx. Had several good partners with FedEx. I actually recruited one of my best buddies to FedEx and got him on, and he's now back to being a policeman. But we had our times, and there was some times, when you team, and that's what we did. When you team, they always say don't team with your best friend or a brother or a sister or even a wife or anything, because you'll hate each other. Well, I got to tell you, and I think he would probably agree with it. It's probably one of the best things we ever did, but also one of the worst. We made a lot of money, but we're both type A personalities. We think we know everything, and it was hard. It was hard on both of us, and honestly, and he's probably going to laugh at this too if he ever sees this. We didn't talk to each other for probably about a year after that, and it's just don't ever team with a friend. You will become enemies afterwards. I promise you that. So, anyways, after that, my last partner in crime at FedEx, my buddy, and I'll name him Chris. He's not in law enforcement. He'll probably enjoy that I named me. But me and my buddy Chris, and I really got serious about going back into the game of leasing again. I think the time was right. This is 21 into 21. I started looking into it really heavy. Started watching a lot of videos, and my number one pick was going to Prime Inc. And again, this is all right about the COVID time period. Spot market rates were through the roof. Everything was through the roof, and I wanted to go to Prime, and I wanted to buy a truck. And I got accepted to Prime, went through their orientation, and I don't know, just something about it just wasn't right with me with Prime. Went through their whole process, and then I had to, obviously I got to that point toward the end of the week when I had to wait on a truck. And at that point, there were shortages of trucks, and they didn't have any ideas of how long it was going to take for me to get a truck. And that kind of made me feel a little uncomfortable. And then they had their Friday safety meeting, or Friday meetings that they always do. I happened to be there at the terminal, and I went to the meeting, and they started talking about vaccines and masks and COVID and this and that. And again, I don't really want to get political, but I'm totally against the mask. I was totally against the vaccines, and I wasn't about that when they started talking that. Sat down at the hotel room on Saturday. I called my wife, and she wasn't big on me going to Prime in the first place. This just wasn't the company, because it is reefer, and she knew from the past of how much problems I had. But Prime to me was the best choice at that time. But sitting around the hotel Saturday morning, waiting for a truck, waiting to get a phone call, I called her and I said, you know what? Come get me. They're starting to talk about this COVID and mask and all this. I'm not going to be here. I'm not going to be a part of that. This company isn't what I thought it was anyways. Something just didn't set right with me. So she came and got me, and this was the time period that me and a good friend of mine, Trucker Todd, started talking. He does his YouTube videos, and he told me, he says, James, why don't you try Swift? And I said, Swift, are you crazy? There is no way I would ever work at Swift. With all those videos that we see from bonehead truckers and all these companies that make fun of Swift, he said, James, I'm telling you, call the recruiter at Swift, and you'll thank me later. So I did. I called the recruiter, made contact with my person, and yeah, it was definitely a good move. Made a lot of money with Swift. Unfortunately, the economy kind of changed. The lanes changed. The freight changed. But one thing that I always did, I had good contacts at Swift. I still have good contacts at Swift that I talk to on a regular basis. I always made money for Swift, but I guess my pants got a little bit bigger than what they should have, and I left the first time. Went to USA Truck, leased a truck through TEL. And immediately when I got there, it just didn't seem right. I looked at the load board, the prices, just everything was bad. I was there for exactly 5 weeks, and I could not make any money with them whatsoever. I tried to take the TEL truck with me. I had, each time I went to Swift and each time I went to do this, I got a brand new truck every single time. So at Swift, I had a brand new Volvo the first time. It was a 22, and then went to TEL truck, it was a 23 Volvo, and then when I went back to Swift, it was a 23 Volvo, another brand new one. But again, back to TEL, it just didn't settle right. It just felt like things from the past with USA Truck. Just couldn't make it. Went back to Swift. They brought me back with no problems, and started making money the very first week I was there. I had Swift's system figured out. I knew how the pay worked. I knew, when their fuel card, needed to be stopped, how to get fuel. I had their cheat code all worked out. And once again, went to the truck show, me and Trucker Todd, in 2023, which would have been last year. Went to the truck show with him, and met a guy with a company, Christenson Transportation. Not going to mention his name, but super guy. He explained to me everything about the company. I asked him a bunch of questions. He stuck his neck out for me and got me a brand new Peterbilt. It was a 2024 Peterbilt. It's one of the very first videos that I started doing on my YouTube channel. To this date, it's got over 60,000 views. It's unreal. And at that time, I only had about 150 subscribers, and I got over 60,000 views on a video. I haven't looked lately to see where it's at, but it was way up there. And to this day, it's still the biggest video. Super nice truck. But the problem there was, and it's not that he said or did anything wrong or the company was bad, or they kept me moving. I got to admit to that. The only problem is a lot of the loads that I would go on, there was a lot of sitting time. Like, they'd give me a 700-mile load, and 700 miles, you can do that in a day and a half, possibly even 2. And the thing is, it would be 3 or 4 days. You'd get the load on a Tuesday, and then it wouldn't deliver till Friday or Saturday. And I'm like, well, that's kind of dumb. So the problem was with that, you just running by the mile, you just don't make any money running by the mile doing that. So I was only able to make about $1,800. That was the biggest check that I had, and I didn't get into this business to make an $1,800 check once my expenses came out. Granted, their lease plan was really, really good. The truck was really, really nice. I've still got, my contact there. I still have a friend that works there. I keep up with him. He's doing good. He's going to be at that position where he's probably going to end up paying his truck off in a couple years. But again, it's nothing to do with Christenson. The Swift and Christenson, they were all good companies to work for. Just not what I was looking for. So I went back to Swift for a third time. Surprisingly, they brought me back. The last time, I wasn't too keen on it. Something just wasn't right. Just like the feeling I had with USA Truck. My recruiter, she didn't tell me at the time, but my recruiter told me that she had a truck for me, and it was a 23 Kenworth, because I told her I wanted a Kenworth. I was starting a YouTube channel, but the problem was I wanted an owner-operator Kenworth, and I wanted an unusual color, like a yellow or an orange or a green. Well, we don't have that. You can have any color you want to, as long as you want blue. That's a Swift blue. I'm like, well, that's not really what I wanted, but, it is a Kenworth, so okay. She's like, James, you want a truck that all the other guys can get when they come in, and this is the truck. So she talked me into it. She made a little sense to me. Immediately when I went to pick the truck up, they said that they put brand new batteries in it. I looked. They sure did. They put brand new batteries in it, but the problem was the truck was dead. Absolutely dead. Wouldn't start. So I go over to the shop. They come over and they jump it. No problem. I stopped it, started right back up. No problem. So maybe that was okay. So I continued with what I had to do, and I was ready to leave. Went down the road, went to the next exit, and the dash went crazy. The truck went down. I'm like, this is kind of odd. So I stopped, started to back up, and the dash went crazy again. I said, well, I'm going to drive this right back to the shop. So I drove it back to the shop, turned it in. This is on a Friday, because I went in on a Thursday. This is on a Friday. Get it to the shop. Of course, it's, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They don't look at it. So it's freaking Monday before they actually look at it. So Monday comes around. They put me up in a hotel, paid me breakdown pay, and again, it's not really Swift's fault, but at the same time, I wanted a new truck. Every time I've done this, I wanted something new. And at that point, I really had intentions on staying there. But anyway, it is what it is. But so I went finally on Tuesday. They finally got the truck ready. I started rolling. So I'm in it for about a week and a half, 2 weeks. I'm out in Phoenix, Arizona, driving through New Mexico, and the truck goes through derate. And if anybody knows what derate is, I know truck drivers do, but the derate basically it gives you I think it was a countdown clock of an hour. If you don't get stopped, get pulled over, the truck's going to just eventually slow down a little bit more, and the derate is all emissions stuff. So there was a Love's truck stop coming up. I went ahead and stopped it. And again, with the countdown, eventually the motor's just going to shut down, so I just turned it off. This was in September of last year. In New Mexico in September, it was 112 degrees, and truck can't run, no AC, so I had to suffer it out for a day, for 24 hours, which was okay. The next day, the wrecker came and got it and towed me to El Paso, Kenworth. And the truck sat there. Let me back up a little bit. If you've seen my previous videos and me talk about it, the Kenworth, the wrecker driver that picked it up, destroyed the front bumper, the radiator, and did all kinds of damage in the tune of about $8,000 worth of damage to the bumper. Need to be replaced, painted. The radiator need to be fixed. The pipe that's under the bumper that goes to the radiator was busted. Anyway, that's a story in itself. So got towed there. It was in the shop for 6 weeks. Now, granted, that sounds like it's a raw deal and a sucky deal. Well, I got a free loaner truck. Didn't have to pay any miles. I still had to pay the truck payment on the Kenworth, but I didn't have to get charged for the loaner truck, which was a good thing. So I wasn't putting miles on my truck, and they gave me a Volvo out of all things because that's kind of what I was used to. Really had me second guessing the Kenworth idea, and I'll never go through a Kenworth ever again. I don't know what it is, but that's the third Kenworth that I've had in different companies that just didn't work out. So anyway, let me back up to what I'm thinking about here. The Kenworth was just a piece of garbage. So eventually, after about 6 weeks, I go back and pick the truck up, and I end up staying with Swift until, trying to think here, it was about February, end of February, when I ended up leaving Swift. And again, you know, I did the Target dedicated for Swift, did really well. I trained, but the problem is, you know, with the Target dedicated, you had to train, you had to have a student, because you couldn't do it as a solo. You couldn't make enough money to make it as a solo. But if you had a trainee that did good, my last check that I made at Swift was $4,100 to the bank, to me, at home, after all expenses. So it's not like I wasn't making money, but I was bored. Swift's a great company. I was a little upset on some of the things that they did that last time I was there. They didn't tell me the recruiting bonus went down. You know, I was a little upset that she gave me a used truck rather than a new one. And then she eventually told me, James, they're not going to give you a new truck again. This is the third time you've been here. You've left every time. Okay, well, that don't really matter. I paid the bills on the truck. Give me what I want, you know. But again, that's besides the point. I made a lot of money at Swift. I would recommend anybody to go to Swift because they are really a good company. It's just right now they're a little slow on freight and stuff, but they are a good company. So February, when I got into March, you know, the very first thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to get a truck from SFI. And this goes back to the days of riding with FedEx. I always wanted to get a truck with SFI. And quite frankly, Schneider was probably the first company that I really wanted to go to back then, just because of the truck with SFI. It was an easy way to go. The problem was with the truck shortage and all that, they wanted, you know, $6,000 to $10,000 down on the truck back then. I just, you know, I probably could afford it eventually if I would have just stuck with it, but I just didn't see to where it made sense to put $6,000 to $10,000 on a truck at that time. So anyway, that was my original goal from the beginning, before Swift, before, you know, any of the other companies that I ever went to. That's what I always wanted to do. So in March, I told my wife, I said, it's time. I'm going to bite the bullet. I'm going to put the $2,500 down, and I'm going to get the SFI truck. And I talked to the recruiter at SFI. He worked a deal out with me to where I put $1,300 down and $100 a week for 12 weeks. I paid, and I'm already past that now, and that was $2,500. And I ran and jumped on it and joined up with Schneider. They had a $6,000 sign-on bonus. So when you do the math with the $6,000 sign-on bonus, I've only been here 3 months, so that's 12, that's 24, it's $3,600. So my down payment's been paid for, plus I've made money on it. So it just made sense with the sign-on bonus to go ahead and make the jump and do it. My intentions aren't to stay at Schneider forever. As I talked about in my last video, the freight market right now, it sucks. It sucks everywhere, honestly. Not that Schneider's a bad company or anything, but this just isn't my ultimate destination, I shall say. I've got an announcement coming up here in the next couple of weeks. I have been looking. I do have somewhere picked out that I'm going to go. Don't know yet when this is going to take place, but I just kind of wanted to put it out there. You might want to subscribe, like, comment, all the above. And keep an eye on my YouTube page. I've got a lot of big things coming up. I just don't want to go over everything yet. I've got another guy we're going to start doing live videos. I think I told this a couple videos back. I'm going to start doing live videos, and I don't know what day yet. I don't know when it's going to start, but I'm thinking it's probably going to start at the end of June, 1st of July is what I'm targeting. This new project that I've got going on, this new company that I'm going to, I want to give it a few weeks, see how things go, make sure I can, run the way I need to, and me and him are going to do a live. So it's going to be a combination between me and him on this YouTube channel. He's going to be my partner in crime on the YouTube channel, and we're going to grow this channel, and you guys are going to help me grow this channel because we're going to have some fun. I'm going to make it interesting. I've told you guys in the past, my ultimate goal is I'd like to do some type of game show, give out prizes and maybe some money, some gift cards and stuff like that. I've got some really, really good ideas that are very non-truck related, and I think it's going to go really well. It's going to be more like a TV program than it's going to be like a trucking show. All these YouTubers that are truck drivers, they put the same content out. I drove to this place. I drove to that place. This is how much I made. And that's not what I wanted to do with this YouTube channel ever. I never really wanted to go over, money. I know that's what everybody watches. I know that's what they get to. And that's where a lot of newbies want to get in here. I'm still going to do some of that. That's not going to change. But I wanted to do something a little bit different. So I'll probably do like 2 or 3 shows a week. My buddy Cash is King does a weekly recap. I'm not going to copy his idea. That's his idea, and I know he talks about it all the time, and I don't want to do that. But I am going to do something that's going to go over, my money that I make. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of details, but I'm going to do something. I just don't know how yet I'm going to do it. And that's it, guys. As always, like, comment, subscribe. Questions, email me. I'll put the link in the description. Any ideas, any suggestions, I'm here for everything, man. I want to try to do something a little bit different. If it fails, it fails. I'm not here to do anything more than just try to have fun and do something different with some interesting content. Again, you guys have a good night. I'm going to bed. It's 10:30. I've been talking for almost 30 minutes. So I hope you guys liked the video. Good night.